Hi everyone, so this is my discussion on Rome Open City and Bicycle Thieves. Starting with Rome Open City, there was a lot of aspects of the film that I liked, and most of them tied back to its roots in Italian neorealism, mainly in the fact that it shows very raw and realistic elements of everyday life for Italians during the end of Nazi occupation following World War II. One of the most specific things I loved about the film was how uncertain life was and how unceremonious some of the deaths in the film were, even for main characters, such as Pina's death, where she was simply shot down while trying to chase down her fiance who was getting kidnapped by the Gestapo. It's a harsh reality that I find to be very realistic, which really harks back to the fact that neorealism was supposed to be very different than the Hollywood studio system and was supposed to be gritty and raw and show what the real world was. And so I really appreciated that, and it was something that I really enjoyed. Overall, I thought the film looked very good. I thought that filming on in actual Italy made it look very obviously realistic, but really helped to establish the tone of the film since it was war torn Rome. It gave it a lot more of a realistic and hearty effect that really affected the tone and made it very dark. As for Bicycle Thief, I really enjoyed this film, and one thing I particularly liked about it was how they depicted poverty and how dire the circumstances for these people were. Then again, harkening back to neorealism and showing how bad poverty was after World War II and after Mussolini. It really took not many scenes to establish that these people were desperate and people would do anything for work. The opening scene, we see Antonio getting called in for a job, and people around him are clamoring, I could do this job. No, I can do this job. I have a bicycle. I could do it. And he ends up having to sell his linens and begging the man to give them more money so he can buy a bicycle and do his job, thus setting off the precipice for the plot when his bicycle gets stolen and he no longer has means for food or for anything because he has no job. One also specific thing that I really loved in this film came from a specific scene, and I think it really helps exemplify the main struggle of this film and how desperate these people were. It came from when Antonio gets his bike stolen and he goes to the police station to tell them that his bike was stolen and that they need to find it. And this happens when one of the other police officers comes up to the captain and says, anything serious, Captain? And then the captain responds, no, just a bicycle. And this is shown with a cut of Antonio's face looking absolutely defeated and looking at them in shock and awe because they can't understand his plights. They can't understand what he's going through. They're in a different social standing than he is. To them, it is not a real crime. It's just a bicycle. It's nothing major. But for him, it's everything. It is his job. It is how he's going to get food on the table for his family and how he's going to provide for them. It's everything. And it is the only reason that he has a job right now. So I really thought that those lines specifically were really great and really helped to show this society after Mussolini's reign and how the people were really struggling from poverty and how people were just desperate for jobs and that not everyone understands this. On to the similarities. One similarity between the films was from the sets. And one of the cornerstones of neorealism is that it is filmed on location in the actual streets of wherever in Italy, this specifically being Rome. And this was to kind of take a dig at the Hollywood studio system, which is filmed on sound stages, and they filmed in the actual streets of war-torn Italy to show the real life things that happen to these people and really to give a sense of grittiness that is the real experiences. And one specific sets that were honestly very similar between the two films and showed how impoverished and how dire the circumstances for the Italian people were between the apartments of the families in the two movies. In Bicycle Thieves, it was the Ritchie's apartment. I believe that it was located outside of the main city of Rome, but it looked to be kind of in the slums. It was very bleak, often filmed from far away, so you could see the entirety of these stony white buildings that are surrounded by dirt and rubble and it looks very poor. It looks very beat up and bruised. And this shows that they are going through a hard time and they are trying their best to get through it and to just be able to afford to live. And I think it really helps to show their situation and set in motion the entire theme of Bicycle Thieves. And as for the apartment in Rome Open City, it is Pina's apartment, and frankly, a lot of people live there. And that is something that really shows the poverty and the dire circumstances of the Italian people during this time period, was that the apartment in Rome Open City is very run down. A lot of people live there. The children's room has old furniture. And it just shows that things are recycled, that a lot of people have to live places because the rent must be high. It kind of lets the audience see that they are not doing well as a people. And this is especially compared to the Gestapo's headquarters, or whichever room they are in. And it is well furnished, it is opulent, and classical music is constantly playing. And when those two shots play next to each other, it really creates a strong juxtaposition that the Italians are struggling, they're poor, and it is because of the Gestapo's reign coming down on them. And I think that really just shows the neorealism effect and how this is really demonstrating real life. As for another similarity, one theme throughout the films that I have found is the fear of poverty. And this, of course, shows the real life struggle of the Italian people dealing with poverty. It is especially prevalent in Bicycle Thieves because it is the precipice of the entire film. You can see the effects of poverty throughout the entire runtime. You see Maria selling her linens and saying that they already sold their first bike in order to get food. Antonio doing anything in order to try and find his bike and get his job. You see towards the end of the film, there is an empty plaza filled with bikes, no people around, and he looks around, contemplating whether or not to steal a bike, and then ultimately decides to, but gets caught. It just shows how desperate he is for this job and for this bike, and that is due to the effects of poverty. As for in Rome Open City, we see this fear of poverty through Marina's character, because she would do anything, including giving up someone who she has been sleeping with, someone who she loves, in order to be in good graces with the Nazis. She will fraternize with the enemy in order to get finer things, finer goods, and live a life without poverty. She even in the film states that she is terrified of the life of poverty. She knows what it looks like and she doesn't want it, which is why she takes so many lovers so that she can have finer things. She says that she can go off and marry, I believe it was a cab driver, and have a child, but they would all be in poverty, and she does not want that. She wants better for herself. Another similarity is the use of wide angles. You can see wide angles in Rome Open City during the apartment raids when the Gestapo come in and take all of the women out of the apartment looking for the men. A lot of this is filmed from a wide angle looking towards the Gestapo and the Nazis, kind of putting the audience in a position of camaraderie with the women in that scene. It's like we are a part of the people in that scene. We are part of the Italian people looking out on this scene. We feel the anxiety, we feel the fear, and it really helps to exemplify the reality and the realness that comes from this film and this genre. This same idea is seen in Bicycle Thieves when Antonio is walking out of the slummy neighborhood after accusing the young man of stealing his bike. He is followed around the corner by a group of men yelling at him, shouting at him, calling him names, and then Bruno trailing on behind him. This is set from a very far, wide angle where we can see the entire interaction play out, once again, as if we are there watching as bystanders, facing the same reality that these characters are facing. As for the differences, there is a sense of camaraderie with the people in Rome Open City that we do not see in Bicycle Thieves. And I think this really goes back into the themes of the time period and understanding what the Italian people were going through. And you would assume that the Italian people would come together in this time due to the tyrannical rule of Mussolini, and just would come together as a people, as they did in Rome Open City, since they had people from so many backgrounds coming together. They had communists with atheists, a woman pregnant out of wedlock and a priest all working together for a common goal. And that just shows the Italian people's struggle against the communist regime. Not communist, I'm so sorry, the fascist regime. And in Bicycle Thieves, the people do not come together at all. In fact, they are quite opposing against each other, constantly competing because of the excessive poverty. And they are just trying their best to do things themselves. And it is all very singular. It is not focused on the community, even though these two films don't take, like, they take place not very far after each other, yet the community could not be more different. Another big difference is the tone of the films. The tone is much more dire and bleak in Rome Open City due to, I think, the Nazi plot lines being so prevalent. We see actual scenes of torture where men are lit on fire and whipped, and it is very hard to watch, frankly. And it creates this very intense tone that is realistic to what those people were going through trying to battle the Gestapo. And you compare this to Bicycle Thieves, where the tone is very intense but emotionally. A lot of the emotion is in subtext, understanding the plight of Antonio and what he has to do for his family. It's all very subtle in subtext, and it's internal struggle, which is very different from the external struggle of the Gestapo in Rome Open City. And it creates just a very different tone from bleak and dangerous in Rome Open City to somber and worrisome or anxious in Bicycle Thieves. The last difference, it has to do with the neo-realist trope of children representing optimism. This is something that is seen very heavily in Rome Open City, with the children helping out with the rebellion, especially, I believe Marcello is Pina's son's name, and he helps the priest hide bombs and weapons, and the children are the last thing we see in the film because they are who is going to carry on the revolution. As for Bicycle Thieves, there is one child seen prevalently, and it is Bruno, Antonio and Maria's son, and he doesn't really do much throughout the film besides follow Antonio around and watch the action happen from a distance and try to help his father, but come up short most of the time. And frankly, this doesn't really fit in with the theme that goes into Italian neorealism of children being optimism, because he doesn't really do much in the film. He doesn't really offer any sort of encouragement, where the children in Rome Open City are the entire next generation of the revolution and are a cornerstone of the film. As for my rankings and my ratings of the films, as I should say, I thought Rome Open City was very good at being in the genre, if that makes sense. I was not very entertained by the film, but I can look past this because of the historical and political implications of this film and understand that it is a textbook example of Italian neorealism, because it is not supposed to be entertaining. It is supposed to be real, and it is supposed to show the truth, and that is what that film did. So by those parameters, I would have to give it a 7, because I still just was not entertained by most of it, and it was kind of hard to get through. As for Bicycle Thieves, it was my second time watching it, and I liked it even better this time. I understood the subtext of Antonio's problems way more, and how hard life was for the Italian people, especially after receiving our lesson on Italian neorealism. So off of those parameters and everything I've said throughout this video, I would give Bicycle Thieves an 8, because there were parts that were slow and dragged on, but yep, 8 out of 10. So thank you all for watching, and have a good day.